before we were talking about how we can advise different firms. So you are a professor. How would you advise some of the U.S. universities that you were talking about earlier to better deal with this? Before you mentioned using M&A as a means to kind of merge your resources and better deal with this. Do you have any other strategies?
Yeah, and I think that the merging part will be for a certain set of universities. It probably won't happen with Penn and the like. But I think we need to rethink and really accelerate how we consider online learning. So online learning is nothing new. We've had MOOCs and other things that have been around for a number of years now, but this is really getting a push right now. What's happened historically is that the top institutions have kind of said, well, our value added is, and I believe in this, through the on-campus experience, and I still believe that because bonding and making friends and club activities and doing everything, you know, bringing in speakers, it's just a unique kind of environment. So I don't think you can recreate all of that online. But I think we can get a little bit of a different balance in the following sense. We can reach many more students. So one way to deal with the crisis, right, is to lower costs. But one way to deal with the crisis is to do something on the revenue side. I always believe in how can you deal with the revenue side. And if you think about it, we can reach many more people if we had a solid offering that's online. And that doesn't necessarily cannibalize. That's what everybody's afraid of, right? The on-campus offering. We can have meaningful, not just MOOCs, which we do for like hundreds of thousands of people, which are fantastic, you know, and certificates, but think of something in between. A bunch of students that want to augment their existing education, for example, even though they're enrolled in another university, and their universities might actually say, you know what, an online course that the University of Pennsylvania offers can count towards credit X that we have, right? That's one example. Another very different example is, think about executive education. So one of the areas that business schools in particular focus on is training executives. So beyond the MBA and undergrad programs, we train, you know, let's say a company like Mercedes-Benz says, we want to send 40 of our high potentials every year to kind of be trained on certain topics. That's the kind of bread and butter of businesses like executive education. And it actually is very, very important for the budget of the university. For that, we can reach a lot more people with a solid online offering because we can say, yeah, send us your 40 highest potentials on campus, but we'll also train the next 100, which you may not want to spend the money on to send them on campus quite yet. We'll train them already through an online offering in a more sophisticated way. We do some of that already, but we can scale it much more. That's another possibility. And then I'll give you a third idea. A lot of people in the MBA program, you know, what happens in the MBA program in the 2 years is we get a lot of core, but we also give a lot of elective courses. Now, the challenging part is there's some things that you can immediately use post-MBA, and there are other things you don't use till 10 years later. I teach on M&A and alliances, for instance, right, at the MBA level. And for that course, honestly, even our MBA grads are not going to be making decisions on acquisitions or integrating them until something like 7, 8, 10 years after their MBA. But then they've forgotten everything. So then they actually reach out again and say, oh, what do you teach now? And can we talk to you and all that stuff, which is fine with me. But imagine you could take some part of your MBA or some augmented stuff when you actually need it, just as a thought, as a more of an on-demand learning that's high quality. We can use this time to perfect it. And perfecting is, by the way, not just the traditional online like we're talking about with Zoom. We can set up classrooms where we've got the traditional podium and the board and everything else. We don't have to use the whiteboard, you know, that's on Zoom, or attach a tablet, which is what I do. You're in the classroom. It's just you've got a massive screen in the back. So you can see everyone, and they can see each other as though they're in a classroom environment. Imagine we superimpose on it either holograms in the future where it looks like they're sitting in front of me. But if that's step 2 or step 3, if we can do something where we have a setup where you kind of look at it, and instead of all these different little frames, Anjali, you look at it as though you see a classroom and people are across from you. The technology exists for stuff like that. So why don't we have classrooms on our end that are set up like that? And then technology platforms, why does it have to be Zoom or someone else who does it? Why don't we partner with someone and invest in those things for the future? Then yes, it's short-term cost, but we can actually make a lot more money in the end. And more importantly, more than the money, we can have a lot more impact on the world by reaching a far greater number of students in different parts.
Yeah, a lot of the ideas that you brought up are really, really interesting. And I think a number of them, I understand why there would be demand for that and how they could actually be very lucrative for the university. So are these just ideas, or are these things that, you know, maybe UPenn is seriously considering for the future?
We're all considering how to have a better online experience and investing in the infrastructure, just because we have to for our own needs right now. And the byproduct will be we can use it for the other things. So we're doing it. Some of the other wild stuff that's out there, like these platforms I'm talking about and holograms and other things like that, and the on-demand learning are maybe not quite in the way that I've described them right now. I'm someone who loves to push people to think about what's possible. And so I think I push these ideas a little bit further. But if we don't do it, somebody else will. You know, someone bright like you will come in and say that, hey, I want to start on this idea while I'm at Penn, and I want to develop it so that afterwards I can go run with it, and I'll have a few advisors who are my professors or something like that on it, just to have me get the credibility, and then we'll go and do that. You know, that might be something that you or some of your friends pursue afterwards. You know, so I want to plant the seeds. Someone's got to do it. I would say we're taking baby steps in that direction. But eventually, you know, we'll get into these things. Sometimes universities are a little conservative, though, just by their very nature. So it needs a bit of impetus. That's one of the areas where I see it as a partnership between a university and a cool new startup or students that want to do it. Those are the kinds of things that I see. I think Yellow Dig and a few others were also kind of grew out of efforts like that, if I'm not mistaken. But there I see a confluence between and a coming together of entrepreneurs together with the universities to do these things. And I certainly am always happy to help pursue those kinds of ideas. I think we need to radically transform a number of industries. This is the golden opportunity for us to do so. So I want to see change and lasting change. More importantly, I want to see impact. You know, there's another topic we haven't talked about at all, but you know, this is a time of awakening for so many movements, right? Whether it's helping the gender, you know, balance, in not just in innovation, but broadly, or underrepresented minorities and all of that. Just think with all these ideas we're proposing now, how much we could do towards all of those causes. It would be incredible, because for me, education and opportunities are are maybe the most important vehicle to provide opportunities for those who don't classically get opportunities of that sort. So the more we can do to branch out and bring high quality education to more and more parts of the world, whether it's poverty, whether it's diversity, all these things, whether it's healthcare, can be transformed by these things. So I want to be at the forefront of it.